Clockwork of the Gods. Prelude. We are. We are one. Our desire for individuality creates a sadness that comes from the isolation caused only by a veil of separation placed over us at birth. Each one of us is God enjoying his or her own unique human experience. How much more thrilling it would be for God, or the Source, as I refer to him or her in these pages, if he experienced a deliberate temporary amnesia and didn't know that he was everything that ever was or ever will be. The human drama that unfolds every day in every household around the globe is a stage play put on by the Source, and we are the main characters. Joy, sorrow, tragedy, loss, and love are the rich rewards. But the drama must be realistic, and it would be fruitless if those main characters were to know that they are of the Source and are eternal. So the veil of separation ensures that we feel isolated from the Source and from each other, and the loss of the love and the connectedness to all things is almost unbearable. Our soul learns and grows as it progresses through manifold lifetimes, and our energetic vibration rises ever upwards until one day we no longer need to reincarnate. We have then graduated from what the late acclaimed psychic researcher Dolores Cannon referred to as Earth School. I have literally had the spiritual journey of a lifetime. And now, at the age of 53, I'm actually older than that now. I am much older. I am excited to be able to sit back and soak in the warmth that comes from the gifted knowledge that everything in my life had a divine purpose, and I am thrilled that I can share this knowing with you. I hope that in some way the divine truth about the true reality of existence will help to lighten the heavy load that we all carry with us everywhere, and perhaps help remove some of the weeds that crowd your pathway to your own ever-continuing spiritual ascension. Perhaps you are browsing this book in a bookstore in some far-flung amazing place that I have never travelled to, and that I will never see, and not in this lifetime anyway. Perhaps you are curious as to the spirit realm and the purpose of human life on Earth, and you thought that you would take a peek at these pages. Your curiosity satiated, you may now decide to place this bound bundle of cellulose and gum back onto the shelf and move on. You're still with me? I'm grateful to you, for you are a seeker, and this is my story, and I give it to you as my gift of love, and by your reading of my words, you give your gift of love to me. You have chosen to read on and give your consideration to my experiences through my written word. You have my gratitude, for deep within, you are aware that there is so much more to this physical existence than our mortal bodies permit us to experience. You know that there is an unseen world, somewhere just beyond the periphery of our vision and our limited hearing. I will try, in my own way, here amongst these pages, to help you begin to discover what you seek, or that which you seek. What you will find is my story, a ghost story unfolding over several chapters. These chapters are interspersed with others of a philosophical and inspirational nature that are the result of my years of spiritual learning and in part channeled from spirit. If you have heard about this book and my story, then it means that as I type this first page, sat here as I am during the lockdown of 2020, it means that my task has perhaps achieved its purpose. The world needs to know so much about the unseen world and the nature of existence. It has been my unknowing and unwitting duty to have experienced manifold bizarre, otherworldly, and consciousness-altering events in my lifetime. It is only now, after I have reached half a century in Earth years, that I can look back on my life and see what occurred, good and bad, had to happen, and the relevance and importance of those events. My ever-expanding understanding of spirituality also allows me to see the irrelevance and unimportance of those same events. The comfort that arises from the gratitude and the empowerment that comes with this understanding I wish to share with you, so that you too may perhaps change your outlook on life forever. So, how do you know that this guy is the genuine article and not another one of the multitude of social media egos espousing spirituality as some kind of currency? And since I've written this book, there are a lot more of those. You don't, or rather your mind doesn't know, but your heart will guide you if you allow it. I give you here the spiritual autobiography of my life's experiences so that your heart can follow its own intuition. 100 or more lifetimes of sorrow and joy now gives rise to the burden of my spiritual duty to put my knowledge into words, in the hope that somewhere out there, at least one person reads these same words, and their life journey improves irrecoverably. Perhaps there are many hundreds or many thousands of persons who may become positively affected by the words in this book. A conscious collective of spiritually aligned, enlightened souls of brothers and sisters. Thank you for choosing to read this, and welcome to the global spiritual awakening. As someone once said to me, and I now say to you, you are blessed and you are chosen. Clockwork of the Gods by Robert Bąkowski. Chapter 1. The Child Who Sees Dead People. The cot. You saw it too, didn't you? He said, with a look of total comprehension and amusement on his face. I was in my cot when it happened. A bright morning, and the sun was flickering through the drawn curtains of my small box-room bedroom. I must have been, I suppose, 1 or 2 years old. Like everything in my parents' house, the immaculately white gloss-painted wooden cot matched my white gloss-painted chest of drawers with its little black Bakelite knobs, and this in turn matched the white gloss-painted bedroom door. Everyone has familiar childhood scents that they can fondly recall, and one of mine is of the smell of freshly painted white gloss. This was to be my first remembered encounter with spirit. Something woke me. Defenceless, the tiny me lay on my back, my eyes opened, and, dazzled by the sunlight, I gazed up at the comfortingly familiar Jolly Blue Rabbit transfer, adhered to the back of my white plywood panelled cot. Then, turning my head, I saw it. It is hard to adequately describe the full terror that the apparition evoked. My starkest memory of the incident with the shade is of my silent scream that I tried without success to release. I am sure that the entire episode lasted mere seconds, and although the door to my bedroom was closed, the entity had entered my bedroom unhindered. Suspended and stationary, the spirit was slightly above floor height and in silhouette against the cheery, bright white bedroom door. What seemed like an age passed, and all the while I was repeatedly trying to scream for help. But to my horror, there was only a silenced, terrified rasp. In these days of extreme horror films, with their unpleasant, spiritually and psychologically corrosive special effects, it is difficult for me to emphasize how terrifying it is for a small child to have the black silhouette of an adult-sized skeleton hover close to your safe space sleeping place. But whatever earthbound entity chose to manifest in that room, it was fully aware of the intentional terror it was inflicting upon an impressionable baby. I was defenseless, alone, without a voice and without assistance. In that moment, the white bars of my cot may just as well have been the bars of my own inescapable prison. I do not recall what happened after that. I believe that I passed out from terror. Upon regaining consciousness, the apparition had gone. It was the one and only time that I saw the spectre. I recall the relief that washed over me as my smiling mother finally entered my bedroom in answer to my now audible cries. With the spectre gone, the deceptive comfort that is provided by the normality of the familiar resumed once more. Too young to speak, I must have been making a fuss as I remember trying to tell my mother what had happened. What to me was a concise and urgent account of events was to my mother simply her baby crying with increasing vented frustration as she calmly sought to soothe me. Why had this ghost chosen to frighten me? I was a mere baby. The answer must be because it could. Whatever the reason, I am very grateful to it, as this was to herald the beginning of a lifetime spiritual journey. This small and seemingly unimportant incident remained with me for my whole life, so much so that it becomes the opening chapter in this book some 50 years later. It poses several unanswered questions. Why would a ghost choose to materialize specifically as a skeleton and not in the form it took in its own lifetime? Had the spectre once been human at all? How does a small child or baby even know what a skeleton is in order to be frightened of it? Surely the entire memory is an imagined episode from childhood, a recollection of a bad dream, perhaps. Finally, why only me and no one else in the household? I never told anyone about the incident. By the time I was old enough to talk, it was already a memory, and one too awkward to admit to. In a household where my strict parents ruled with the ever-present threat of being given a thick ear for any minor misdemeanor, I kept my silence. My draconian upbringing ensured that truths and untruths alike remained unuttered for fear of punishment. So this strange and dark memory from my younger years stayed with me and me alone, only to be repeated over and over in my mind's eye. So many times, in fact, that, just like my happier early childhood memories, it burnt itself into my reality, yet I still doubted it. Fast forward to the year 1997. Probably some 27 years later, and the incident was all but consigned to that part of our brain marked childhood imagination. Now aged 28, and after several years of having moved around the south of the UK, I had settled on the county of Dorset. One day, while visiting a friend's house in a nearby town, the incident with the skeletal ghost resurfaced. My friend's cat had given birth to kittens, and she was keen to show both me and a mutual friend with a view to finding adopted parents. Her father, with whom she lived, would not allow the kittens into the house, so the three of us happily made our way out to the warm summer sunshine and into the double garage, where the kittens were being weaned by an attentive mother. The double up and over garage door went up and over, and In stark contrast to the daylight without, our eyes adjusted to the darkness within. There, in a large cardboard box, were the kittens with the mother. People who know and love me well will tell you that I am a cat obsessive. They are the most perfect creatures. I cannot today live without at least one in my life, and as I write this, I am joint custodian of 13 rescue cats. However, that sunny afternoon I did not have eyes for the kittens. I only had eyes for what had been discarded and stored many years before at the rear of the garage. Despite the years of disuse, it remained still shiny in its white gloss paint, and a powerful recognition fired through my very being, and for a moment I was a little boy once more. With an overwhelming sensation of nostalgia for days lost, I exclaimed, "Oh, this is just like the one that I had as a child." The not unreasonable snorted retort of, "How could you possibly remember that far back?" came from my co-kitten conspirator. I made my way through the stored junk and furniture to the rear of the garage and towards the thing that had caught my eye and had piqued my interest. It beckoned me into a world of happy childhood recollections and that energy of nostalgia that can flood through us like a warming brandy on a cold day. Now standing over the cot, I was no longer a small infant inside looking out, but a full-size adult towering above it, just like... "That was my cot when I was a baby," laughed my kitten-owning friend. She was only a year older than me, so it was perfectly reasonable that she could have had the same make of cot as I'd had. In my silent rapture, I failed to reply. I was mesmerized. There, on the rear white gloss painted plywood panel, was a transfer sticker. A transfer of an oh so familiar jolly blue rabbit, and still skipping its delightful 1960s cutesy dance. "This isn't similar to the cot that I had," I said in a quiet, serious voice. "It's identical." I stood looking down into the pretty little white cot, and the memories came flooding back. The memory of a distant, sunny morning in 1970 when perhaps the weather had not been too dissimilar to today, so it had not been a false memory. It had happened, just as I recalled, hadn't it? I clearly couldn't tell the two friends, who were now impatiently waiting for me by a box full of warm, excited kittens. After all, it was obvious that they did not even believe me capable of remembering my cot, so why would they believe a story about a phantom seen by a 1-year-old? I remained silent, but my mind buzzed. And there the story would be lost, forgotten, concluded, had it not been for a second synchronicity. Many years passed, life occurred, as it does, and once more the incident of the spectre at my cot faded to a memory. That is, until one evening came a chance conversation with my brother, who is some 10 years my senior. We had been catching up via a Skype video call from my home in Dorset to his house in Cyprus, where he and his wife had retired. As is often the case with family members who have not seen each other in many years, we recounted old stories and got chatting excitedly about the past. All of our older relatives were now dead, and we too are the only surviving family members who can remember the old days, our own past and our own shared history. This eventually happens to us all. We began to talk about the various homes of our childhood, working chronologically backwards, and I described my bedroom with the cot. Until this conversation, I had mistakenly thought that this room was in my favourite childhood home. "Oh no, the small bedroom with your cot was actually in an earlier house," my older brother corrected. Explaining, he continued, "We moved from there when you were aged about 1 or 2 years old." That came as a revelation, but then all our childhood homes smelt of white gloss paint, and so they perhaps all seemed the same to me. Then a thought took me. Following the death of our parents, my brother and I had been getting along well and could chat about most things unhindered. Upon his bittersweet departure from the UK, we had already experienced a paranormal moment in a public house where a large white orb had slowly encircled our dining table. While that is another story for another time, it reminded me of the supernatural, and so, after briefly chatting about the public house orb, I decided to mention the incident with the skeleton. Expecting a quizzical look or a disbelieving guffaw, I nonetheless began to relay my childhood recollection of events over a flashing and noisy Skype internet connection. Just why was Skyping my brother always accompanied by this strange flashing and these loud but incoherent male voices in the background? I was to find out many months later. For now, I dismissed the interruptions as electrical problems and pressed ahead. "So, do you remember my small bedroom with the cot?" I inquired. He confirmed that indeed he did, and described accurately the contents of that room, which matched and validated my own memories. Picking up the courage, I began my story. Well, my one memory of that room was of a sunny morning, when I was woken in my cot, and on looking out of... I trailed off as my brother interrupted me. "You saw it too, didn't you?" he said, with a look of total comprehension and amusement on his face. My jaw must have dropped. My brother then confirmed that before I was born, my bedroom had in fact been his, and that as a small boy, he too had been awoken one morning by the apparition of a silhouetted skeleton against the bedroom door. Independent of each other, we had both experienced the ghost. With my brother some 10 years older than me, we had seen it some years apart. We had experienced the same thing and in the same room of the same house, yet it was only now that we felt secure enough to discuss the details. My brother explained that a small boy had tragically died in that house a few years prior. He believed that it was the earthbound spirit of this boy that had created the mischievous apparition. Perhaps his theory is correct, though a psychic medium friend has more recently dismissed this idea, understanding the apparition to have been something else. Whatever it was meant for me to see, and it set me on course for a lifetime of supernatural encounters and an amazing spiritual journey for which I am so very grateful. In later years, I was to become involved in a small part with what is called rescue work. This is where earthbound spirits who require help to cross into the light are aided by one or more psychic mediums. It seems I have a talent for sniffing them out, as it was once put to me, or perhaps they have a talent for sniffing me out. Whichever way around, some earthbound spirits want and need some additional help to cross to the light. Others choose to stay earthside. And some spirits resent and fear all assistance. All of us have total free will. As it is in life, so it is in death. Definition: earthbound spirit. The spirit of a deceased person or animal that has not crossed from this three-dimensional physical reality to the next 5D reality, commonly referred to as heaven or as the light in spiritual circles. When I refer in this book to the light or to the source, I am referring to God. And so I am treating these two key phrases as nouns, differentiated as such by capital letters. Thus ends chapter 1. Chapter 2 is entitled Silver Jubilee, and I'll do that next time. Well, I hope you enjoyed that chapter as much actually as I did reading it out. So yes, hope to see you next time. Thanks very much.